I was going to start off with good afternoon, but then I felt like it'd be funny to say good evening because you guys have been waiting for so long. All right, that was my off-the-cuff joke, but all right. Okay, so how's everyone doing? All right, we got to get the energy level back up. Everyone who works with me knows I like to do that. Like, got to get it going, feel good. We're all here to have some fun, okay? All right, so today we are going to talk about what it takes to be a trendsetter in this fast-paced, ever-changing media landscape. And I think we can all agree things are moving rather quickly. All right, everyone on the stage has a track record of creating innovative, brand-building work, and we're going to talk about how they approach it, okay? Creativity, content integration, performance, data. We all love data, don't we? We have enough data. And insights and what it means to be an early adopter of technology, which is our roundabout way of introducing 5G, okay? All right, so lastly, we dig into how basically not only going to keep up, but stay ahead in this world of innovation. All right, so we have an incredible group of partners joining us today, so please welcome the panel. We're going to start off with Ben Baker, Vice President, Grocery Marketing, Walmart. And in this role, Ben leads strategy and media for America's biggest grocer, including the recent Famous Cars campaign for the fast-growing grocery pickup service. So let's take a look at this recent work.
You guys hungry?
All right, that looks pretty good. All right, next we have Burke Morley, VP of Branding and Executive Creative Director for Purple. Burke is an experienced brand marketer who has helped build iconic brands. I think you've heard of some of these brands. Nike, Sonic, American Eagle, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Hollister. And let's take a look at an example of Purple's work.
I'm here to prove that Purple mattress blows memory foam out of the bedroom.
Only Purple passes the durability test, body heat test, and the all-new HED test, or human egg drop test for the layman. The best test to determine a mattress's comfort and support. Ready, Billy?
No, I just it perfect.
Just look at how the Purple Smart Comfort Grid, made from a super comfy yet ultra supportive material called hyperelastic polymer, cradled those unfertilized chickies. And yeah, they're pretty real. Now, how about that memory foam?
All right, that's great stuff. And now I'd like to introduce Rachel Rain, who's a Senior Marketing Manager of Car and Truck Portfolio for Toyota Canada in Toronto, responsible for all national Tier 1 nameplate marketing. She manages the strategic connections, planning, communications, and development of all Toyota vehicles with a priority on new vehicle launches and volume vehicles. So let's take a look at Toyota. Okay, very good. All right, so now we're going to get going into the Jeopardy round. No. Okay, so you're all here for your recognized work as established partners and marketers. Okay, that's a given. And because of that, I want to ask you, what do you think it takes basically to create, trend-setting brand building work? Stuff that in today's competitive, I mean, it is so competitive out there and complicated marketing landscape. What's it take to make it work? Burke.
Yes, I think for me, I like to think of kind of two pieces. One is that consumers now are so aware and so informed. It has to be based in some kind of truth. So finding that, going past the observations, getting into that nugget of truth of whether it's for the brand or for the product is really the starting point. One of the things that's interesting is once you figure out what that truth is, you can not only know what to do, you kind of know what not to do, which is a really important piece of doing something that's interesting. I would say the second piece is, you have to get people's attention. It's been said that time is our most valuable resource. Okay. When you think about it, time is passing no matter what we're doing with it, right? So I would argue that's actually our attention is the most valuable resource that we have. So what is it we're spending our time paying attention to? And how do you as a brand create something that people want to give their attention to? And I think the way to do that is to have something that's true and relevant to them. Even if it's not necessarily speaking to the masses, if you're speaking to the person you care most about in a way that they, connects with them, that's where I think some really interesting and powerful things can happen.
So it's like authenticity and giving value, a value proposition for their time.
Yeah, and I think authenticity gets thrown out a lot in our industry, but I think getting past that observations, getting into the insight of what really matters to that person, I think is the difference.
Okay. All right, Ben.
Yeah, I was going to say insight's the same thing. For us, the spot you guys just saw, I think it starts with a good product, right, and then digging into the insight. And for us, the insight, when people pick their groceries up for the first time, we actually call it the magic moment, because mom's sort of head explodes when she realizes she doesn't have to take her kids out of the car. So as we were building the service, I've been a part of really from early days when we were very small. And so we really used that internally to market to people internally and externally about this magic moment that we wanted to recreate. So when we got to go on the big stage for that spot you guys just saw, the brief was really about what is that magic moment? How can we really play on that idea? And obviously it was taken to extremes in terms of the the properties that we were able to work with. But the Transformers having a magic moment, or the Batmobile having a magic moment, or my favorite, the Back to the Future car having the moment, all those things really came together. But I think I'll echo what you said. It's what's that one thing that you really want to figure out a way to understand about why this service or your product is so unusual or unexpected or new or different, and then sort of play onto that into a way that is interesting for the customer to consume.
It doesn't have to be complicated either. That's a very simple insight, but it just kind of puts everything into focus.
Yep.
Okay. Rachel?
I'm going to simplify it too. If there's one thing I can leave you here with is consumer-first strategies and trying to understand their value system, what makes them tick, understanding their tensions, are there any unmet needs, and then trying to match your product offering and address some of those unmet needs. And we have a very broad lineup, so it really depends on that target, that consumer for that particular vehicle. Safety can be important to pretty much everybody, but safety to someone in a Corolla is really about putting my friends and family first, and someone in a Camry, not that they don't love their friends and family, but it's perhaps a lot of the technology to be able to say, I love a vehicle that's full of technology. So there's differentiations between the two.
Okay. So now it takes a lot of creative work, innovation, to change perceptions, okay? So when you're looking at all the creative work that you're putting together, what perceptions for your brands do you want to overcome? Is there a perception you want to overcome?
Yeah, so at Purple, we've been really good at getting attention. If you've seen them, we've got some really quirky spots, like dropping people from, contraptions to smash eggs and all sorts of different things like that. Lots of characters. It's been great at getting attention, but we've got just north of 1.5 billion views of our ads. The problem has been that we've kind of really been focused on, it has a very male kind of focus and feel, right. And we're really popular with like 13-year-old boys who, it's weird, they don't buy a lot of mattresses. So even though it's been great at getting attention, we haven't done a great job of kind of really talking about the innovation that we have and also being a more premium brand and focusing more on her. She's really kind of key in deciding a lot of things in the home, and in particular in the bedroom, and a mattress. So those are some of the shifts we want to do, is become more premium, more focused on innovation, and focus more on her.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, well, all of you guys have heard of Walmart, I assume, and the brand definitely has good and a lot of baggage with it as well. So as we were building the grocery pickup service, again, we were fortunate to have a value prop that the customer really was excited about. So early days, it was about amplifying organic content that we found online and trying to be very local in terms of how we rolled out the service. But I think as it got bigger, it's interesting that you talk about that. Again, just to reflect on the Famous Cars ad a little bit, there were a bunch of different versions of that ad, a bunch of different properties that were in it. And one of the sensitivities we had to it was very much thinking about the female. Our service, about 75% of our shoppers, our grocery pickup shoppers, are female. So we worked really hard to come up with other versions of that spot, which were a little bit more female-centric. So there was one you guys may have seen, I think it was the one that ran during the Super Bowl, that had Cinderella in the middle. Cinderella's carousel or Cinderella's carriage was a big part of that spot, and that was an explicit reason to try to help us talk to our female customer base. But I'd say the pitfalls as well. Awesome creative idea. The spot was amazing. Got lots of attention and awareness. Lots of people talking about it. But as we worked more down the funnel, we kind of kept those cute properties, try to write really clever sort of copy lines that I think we all thought were great. But we kind of lost our way a little bit in terms of overcoming the barriers to the service itself. So I think that push and pull of like the insight, yes, you have a great creative idea, but remembering what's the service about, who are you talking to, and making sure that it's trying to tie those two together is, I think, the balance of any good campaign.
Okay. Rachel?
Toyota brand perception gaps. I think pretty much all I can say on that one is beige and for older people. That tends to be what we have that comes out of consumer groups. So those are big gaps to kind of to overcome. So we're not always seen as kind of fun and exciting. So we have to be very aggressive. And the one thing that we do is we have certain brand pillars. There's 4 brand pillars that we follow. And then without that, underneath that is our nameplates kind of fall underneath some of those brand pillars. And we always have maybe 3 or 4 kind of brand health imagery metrics or gaps that we're trying to change. And we just solely focus on those, and we hit them and we hit them. It doesn't matter what channel, it doesn't matter what medium, we just keep driving that message home. So if it's fun to drive, or that we're safe, or that we're stylish and we have beautiful designs, we are relentless at doing that. And I wish we had it here, but if you could see the changes that we made to Corolla perceptions in Canada at the launch of the Corolla hatchback, unbelievable. Like +9, +10 point shifts in some of these brand perception gaps. And and we're going to continue that through. The strategy does not change. We just continue on even through sustainment.
Okay, wow. All right, here's one for Ben. Okay. How do you drive consumers from the point of inspiration to the point of transaction seamlessly?
Well, the seamless part's hard, but I think I would say, again, part of the, when I'll speak to grocery pickup as an idea, the service has been out there for a while. People are generally kind of aware of what it is now, but the number one barrier to getting people to try it is they don't trust someone else to pick their food, right? It's food for their family. And so that insight has stayed pretty true. So I think the nice thing about a spot like we just saw is it's getting a lot of awareness. People are talking about it. People are now like, oh, that's an interesting thing, or maybe I've heard my friends talk about it. But we really have to work at what we call the middle part of the funnel in terms of education about how does the service work. These associates are highly trained who are picking it for you, just like your family. And I would say we've been doing this, we've been marketing this product for 3.5 years, and we're still learning about the right way to do it, the right places to be, the right sort of keywords to hit on to her to help her understand that this is a service that she can trust in terms of how to serve her family. So I'd say that thinking, and then of course once someone consumes that content, trying to close them off and more bottom funnel kind of stuff, to speak in very marketing funnel terms. But I think that once you get enough awareness out there, it's interesting to hear about your people know what it is, but it's like, but why should I do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's checking one box, or solving one problem, but creating another one.
Yep.
Okay. So now Burke, coming your way.
Yeah.
So since its inception in 2016, Purple has basically turned the mattress industry on its head, okay? And using direct-to-consumer and digital marketing tactics, you're doing this, as you were saying before, and we saw, as video first,
Yep.
okay? And basically, you're introducing consumers to the brand through this entertaining and educational way, but tell us overall more about that strategy. Like, how'd you come up with the strategy to begin with? Like, why did you go that way?
Yeah, I think it was something where we, as a brand, we've never taken ourselves too seriously. And it was just something that we didn't have a lot of money. You know, like you mentioned, Purple has only been around for 3 years, and yet we're on track to do $400 billion.
You guys should erupt.
$400 million in a short amount of time, and really a lot of that's been because of attention and doing something kind of quirky and different that really stood out. It was interesting because, especially at the time, the kind of the norm was to do short, bite-sized clips of content.
Yeah.
And we did the exact opposite. We did these long-form kind of infotainment type spots that worked incredibly well, and we actually still run those today. The original spot, and it still performs incredibly well.
Okay, I mean, you have to think about where you're pushing things and where that boundary is that you're pushing to. And I think we all watch that and take a look at it and see the success that people have as they push up to it. I would say, like, when you think about it, innovation. What does innovation mean? Like, what does innovation mean to, it means so many different things. If I go through this audience, we're gonna hear what's innovation. Is it innovation, in ad tech? Is it innovation in creativity? Innovation means a lot. So tell us why what you're doing, how you look at it, really seems so unique compared to in the category, let's say, of your competitors.
I think it's important to look at innovation within the context of your brand or your product, because there could be something that, I think it's interesting when there's a disruptor who comes into an industry that's kind of been tired or kind of not much has been happening in it. So I think of Nest and Tesla and some other people have done. Whoever thought a thermostat would be cool, right? But yet that has some some cachet and people are into it. So with Purple, we look at ourselves as a disruptor as well. It's interesting when the bed in the box idea was invented, it was really about making the purchasing experience better of buying a mattress, right? So no one likes the experience of going to a mattress store and laying on mattresses with people watching you. It's kind of a vulnerable feeling. Right. A guy trying to sell you and upsell you. So really, when other brands kind of launched, that was the idea to kind of figure that out and make that better. So Purple came along, we actually have some real innovation that's different than anything else that's out there. And so we have kind of been lumped together with the fact that we deliver our beds in a box as well, but we want to distinguish ourselves from that because we actually have some true innovation. So that's kind of where the work is for us now, is how do we differentiate ourselves and separate ourselves using this idea of kind of doing more storytelling. And we plan on doing that in ways that are unique from even where we've been. Really leaning into innovation and making innovation kind of the hero of our product. Going away from really telling what our product is and showing what it feels like is a big idea that we're going to play with and bring to life in some interesting ways.
So it's really innovation every step of the way. Innovation, how you're bringing it to life, innovation in that product, all the differences that differentiate you from the competition,
right?
And bringing them all into one, but doing it in such a humorous way.
Yeah, and humor, and then also I've realized that one of the things that people do when they see our product is they want to touch it. They want to feel it, squeeze it, touch it. And so the challenge that I have and my team has is how do we actually make a tactile experience when something you're watching and viewing. That's an interesting challenge to have, and that's something we're looking into.
Okay, so how do you, Rachel, how do you focus on innovation?
I think first you have to be self-aware. Especially as a brand that's been around as long as Toyota has. I think being self-aware in the fact that there are auto disruptors out there. We're well aware of who they are. I mean, Uber, why would you need a vehicle? You have Uber now, Tesla, changing the retail model. So that self-awareness is the starting point, and understanding what that friction is in the experience of our current business model and how we can modernize that and make that better, because we don't want to see that change. We have 278 fantastic dealers across Canada, but their responsibility is their day-to-day business. as our head office, it's our responsibility to provide them the insights and the research and the information and the vision of where we need to go to be innovative. So with that, about 3-4 years ago, Toyota Canada introduced a business innovation department. And their sole responsibility is really to create that seamless brand experience. So from what you see at Tier 1 to see what you see in the tactical world to what you see at the dealership. So right now they're in the middle of piloting some pretty cool stuff at some of the dealerships where we've gathered some of that information, not only from outside of the industry, but also some of our Toyota affiliates globally. We've taken some notes from Australia, for example. So a lot of really cool technology. And as modest as Toyota is, you better believe that they're always innovating. So I'm looking forward to see what they come up with at Tokyo 2020.
Okay, Ben, how do you see innovation?
Yeah, I think,
What you're doing?
well, I mean, a company like mine that's been around for a long time, I think has to be willing to disrupt itself. And I think grocery pickup is a great example of that, right? We're at Walmart is America's biggest grocer. And so creating a service like this could be potentially disrupting itself. And I think that it was, the company took a fairly methodical approach to it. A brand that we own in the UK called Asda had kind of really unlocked the pickup and delivery service in the UK. And so we modeled it after that, and it started slow, and then it grew really fast as the service really took hold and customers responded positively to it. So I think in terms of innovation, being willing to sort of disrupt yourself and question everything. So for me, in terms of marketing, once we were able to start marketing the service, it started really small. We were, a little bit of search, a little bit of display, a little bit of social, we were geo-located across the country. And so as we grew, it was always being willing to try new things and new channels, and channels that you wouldn't necessarily expect might work. For my service, direct mail is actually a very effective channel. Radio has been an effective channel, out of home. I'm a digital guy. I want to think everything digital, everything's super measurable in terms of digital, but we were small enough to be able to see when we turned on those channels in certain geos, we saw reactions in sales. So I think that's just, again, the idea of innovation or disruption, saying, well, just because you think direct mail is an old school, thing from the 80s or 70s, it's probably worth trying to see if it works. If you can and if it doesn't work, then don't do it anymore, obviously, or keep trying to make it work. So I think we've been fortunate in terms of how we've grown the marketing approach to the service, because it's been, well, not really slow, and I guess three years go from kind of nothing to where we are today. But being always willing to sort of question everything and say, well, is this good or not, and should we keep trying it or not, and move on.
Right.
And I would, if I could just add one thing. So it's interesting, you kind of mentioned data and everything, and I think there is access to so much data now and so much research and to the consumer's kind of mindset. I think that can become a bit of a crutch. And so I think it's important to remember that most customers don't know what they want until someone's showing them something interesting. I don't think anyone's saying, man, I really wish I could rent my bedroom to some stranger and they use an app to do it, you know what I mean? But now, because someone was willing to kind of go into an uncharted territory, something interesting happens. So I would just encourage you guys to, not be, insight's great, consumer research is great.
Don't be paralyzed by it.
But don't be paralyzed by that, because really the most interesting stuff is on the edges where you're pushing the boundaries. Otherwise, everything just kind of stays the same shape, the same size.
Well, I'll just build on that too. One of the insights we got as we were building the service for people, they try grocery pickup and then come back. And so this is an example of not being too paralyzed by data, because the number one reason why people didn't come back was no reason. And really the insight there is that changing people's habits is hard.
Right.
So they might try it once and they might love it. We had really great NPS. Nothing was wrong with the service. They just knew one way to grocery shop, right? So I think, in whatever your version of that is, it's like, well, okay, we got to keep trying things to change their minds. And so I think the art and science sort of combination is something you
Absolutely.
don't want to go too far either way.
Yep.
So you still think there's also a part for gut, also?
100%.
It has to be, right?
I believe it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's where I think that's where the magic happens. I
Yeah.
think we need to be good at trusting
You
ourselves.
got to go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Rachel, when you were changing perception for the Camry, what research did you look at? Like what research, what gut, what measurement came to mind that made you go forward with what you did?
Well, back in 2016, I want to say we conducted a segmentation study across Canada with our partners, Kantar TNS. And what that is basically is a psychographic assessment of the Canadian population. We're able to group them based on like-minded values and such. So 2017, when we saw the, or before that we saw the new Camry, we thought, oh yeah, we got something to work with. I mean, you guys saw it, red seats, beautiful, right? It completely transformed. But we're trying to change those perceptions from those beautiful yellow cabs that you have out here, and there are a lot of them, and I'll tell you that does not help our perceptions. But we took that segmentation data to really try to understand the consumer more on a psychographic level and determine who our target would be based on a number of criteria, brand fit, amongst some other things, product fit, et cetera. And we leveraged that and then determined that our pillars would be technology, style and design, so safety was in there as well. And those were the pillars we basically focused on because that's what was something that was valuable to the consumer, and you put it into a setting that speaks to them. So style for them would be standing out from a crowd. We have other vehicles that might have a bit of a more modern style approach to them, but once you truly understand their motivations from the inside, you can really begin to change those brand perceptions.
I think just to play on that a little bit, though, because that's very smart, intelligent, makes a ton of sense. Just to tell a story on the other side of the paradigm, though. So with the famous car spot you guys saw earlier, when we first saw the boards, everyone was super excited about it. It seemed great, and it was going to be a TV commercial on the whole way through the funnel. But when when we were filming it on the set last fall, I'm a car fanatic, so for me, I was sort of walking around, seeing the Batmobile do donuts over here and the Back to the Future car over here. It was incredible. But it was, and what I noticed though, for me, it was that because I'm a car guy, but everybody who was on the set, all the crew, all the people who were there just had this like amazing reaction to the cars. And so I was sitting there thinking like, there's gotta be some way to get the physical cars closer to our customers, right? So I came back and talked to our stores marketing teams about how can we like figure out some way to do this. And what we landed on was we did, I think a 15 or 18 city tour where some of the cars actually went and did appearances at the stores. And so it sort of dovetailed on after everyone had seen the commercials so much, people were actually able to go to the stores and get pictures taken with the cars. And we heard all these amazing stories about kids who always wanted to see the Batmobile or the Back to the Future car, whatever it was. And so there was no real, science telling me that was a good thing to do, but observing people having the reaction to the cars, even in the commercials, it's the same way. But having people physically see them, there's something, very amazing about tangibly seeing these icons of your youth. So I think that's another way to sort of say, I hope it's a balance of both, not just one.
Right. That's cool. Right. You want to add on anything?
Yeah. So it's interesting because one of the things I've realized with all the different jobs I've had is you kind of have these windows as a team where you're with that group of people at that job in that role for kind of a finite amount of time. And so one of the things I've really liked to do is kind of challenge my team and say to them, like, let's be a little selfish. Let's do something that we're all super stoked about. It may be a little bit under the radar. It may be something that no one even really knows a lot about, not a lot of budget, but we'll just do some stuff that just is more interesting and kind of innovative. And it's interesting to see how people kind of tack onto that and want to be a part of it because there's energy. LeBron James has this awesome quote. He says, the ball finds energy. Which you think about it in basketball, it's a really cool idea, right? The ball doesn't want to go to the guy who's sitting at half court catching his breath, right? The ball wants to go to the guy who's cutting the basket, who's, there's energy happening. And so challenging my team to kind of be that team that has the energy really draws budget, it draws attention, it just does a lot of interesting things. So I think being a little selfish with your team can really drive some innovation and some creative, interesting thinking.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. When it works, it must be like magic.
It's the best.
Yeah. So Rachel, I'm going to go back to you. So you worked with Riot, you worked with HuffPo on a docuseries. Okay. So what made you think that was the right way to go with branded content and to go forward with that? Like, how'd you choose that?
We selected, I think, mostly for some of our niche vehicles. And yes, in Canada, Camry is considered a niche vehicle. Our entry is Corolla. But we chose it because in all of the campaigns that we build, all the programs that we have, we always think about, what are the selling moments, but also what are some of the helping moments. I know it sounds strange, the auto industry is always be selling. That's not necessarily the case in marketing. So we make sure to have a good balance of both. And I'd say branded content kind of fits in the middle of those two, where you can really engage with consumers and integrate your product in a very, very natural way through this document series that we had. So a lot of the content was really about your hobbyists, and the vehicle just would naturally integrate. So if it was kind of a style story, we would naturally integrate Camry into there. A technology story, we would naturally integrate it in there. And with that, we also had product videos that were created. So when we're looking at retargeting efforts, we would retarget them with some of the product videos. And I think that's a little bit more malleable for them. That's a little bit more accepting. They're not like, oh, here we go, I'm trying to be sold to again. They're like, yeah, no, that's right. I kind of saw Camry in there. That's a fit for Camry. So I'm not surprised to see that. And so it kind of lets their guards down a little bit. So it's kind of in between of that selling and that helping moment. So we saw a lot of brand lift and impressions that, this is a fit for your brand. And that was really kind of the story behind that. So we do that quite a bit with vehicles that don't necessarily need a lot of awareness because they're already on people's shopping list. Camry has a huge heritage that kind of goes behind it. It also allows us to kind of naturally integrate some of those pillars. Like I said, you always focus on those 3 or 4 things, and you are relentless, and you put them into all channels, and this is one of the channels we used.
What do you feel about, and I'll go back to Burke, that blurring of the line, between content and in content, between, let's say, an editorial, entertainment, where is that line when you go there?
Yeah, again, I think it depends on the brand and the product. I think one of the things that's interesting is, as brands, we always ask people to follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, follow us on our socials, follow us on YouTube, whatever. The question I like to ask is, where are we taking them? If I'm going to follow you as a brand, where are you going to take me? And is it somewhere that, a couple things. One, is it interesting? Is it compelling to me? And 2, is it believable? Right. I think that a lot of times brands kind of fall in love with trends, and they'll try to do something that doesn't feel authentic. And I think customers say, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you as a brand can go to that place. Whereas other brands do things that are really interesting. I just recently learned that Patagonia now sells seeds, like the seeds you plant in the ground. And they have bars and all sorts of stuff. And at first I was like, that's kind of weird. But then I was like, actually, it makes kind of perfect sense.
It because they've extend.
Yeah, because they've invested a lot, and they've actually backed up a lot of things with like supporting environmental efforts and those types of things. So for me, it has to come back to a truth. And if it does, then I think people will go there with you.
Okay. All right. That's pretty good. Ben?
I'm hoping, this is just sort of a personal thing for me, but I'm personally a pretty heavy Instagram user. And just the sort of Instagram story, I'm selling this product because I have XYZ followers. I think I just feel like we're sort of getting over that. I hope as an industry we're getting a little past that and challenging these people maybe to be a little more interesting or unique or specific to the brand. I feel like, it's the like, I tried the thing and it's amazing, but you're like, no, but you got paid to say that. So that's why you're saying that. I feel like that's just something as a marketer myself, I'm becoming a little bit like, every time I see it, the hair on the back of my neck raises up. And I totally get why, in terms of authenticity. I mean, a brand like mine, a lot of people don't believe us, but they'll believe someone they follow. So I get the sort of idea of doing it, but I'm hoping that we can find maybe more compelling or interesting ways to have influencers help tell brand stories that feel connected, but in a more unique way.
Do you ever look at, let's say on Instagram, you look for more natural, organic ideas that come to life, and maybe something you can build upon?
Yeah, because again, my customer, she is on Instagram, and she is a big user of that, and she is very interested in consuming content there. I'm looking for it. I don't know that I found anything quite yet. I went to a panel this morning that was hosted by Instagram. They talked about a couple people that I need to check out. But again, to me, that sort of standard Instagram story for me, grocery pickup. I tried grocery pickup and it was easy. It's like I want to do something a little more original and interesting than that.
Okay.
I had an interesting organic experience. So the other day I was walking home from work, and I looked up into the sky. It was this really beautiful sunset, and I realized literally every time that we care most about our customer, the sky literally turns purple, which is pretty cool, right? So there's purple dawn and
Look at
there's
that.
purple dusk, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but it is important to remember there's inspiration kind of everywhere, right? So that organic kind of thing has the potential to be something really special and kind of unique to our brand. But I think, you know, just being aware and paying attention, I think there's inspiration kind of everywhere.
Okay, that's, yeah.
So now you guys can think of purple when
Purple.
you see
Look at that.
sunset.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to Rachel. How do you leverage your data to execute more, you know, faster, smarter, more cost efficient?
We tend to use our first party data, which I just spoke about segmentation and how we did that. So we went through our first party data, and we have a large following of loyal customer base, and we were able to kind of segment them, and that data is just completely valuable to us. So even someone who bought a Corolla prior to our full model change, there's going to be different insights for them than there will be for the current consumer that we have, and we can create lookalike audiences. So trying to really understand who that consumer is who just bought our new Corolla hatchback or new Corolla sedan, new RAV4, et cetera, and to be able to create those lookalike audiences in other channels, I think is extremely valuable, and it's a very, very efficient way for us to use our own internal data.
Okay. And Ben, how do you think about first-party data?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo the same thing. I mean, I would say at Walmart, it's no shortage of data. It's trying to figure out what to do with it, all right? I mean, we just have reams and reams and reams of data about what customers are doing. So that's the challenge. And, you know, we're fortunate to have a lot of smart data scientists and researchers helping us figure out what to do with it. But I would say in terms of marketing, turning them into lookalike audiences, doing all that good stuff, I mean, we're able to segment our customers in a pretty decent way of people who have tried grocery pickup once or haven't tried it in a while, and the different marketing channels that we can use to try to reach out to them, and, you know, using advertisers to find people who've tried competitors of ours in terms of grocery pickup, right, and targeting those folks, like we've done a little bit of that with Yahoo Mail. So we've seen some success in that, and I think that's the kind of thing we got to keep exploring.
Right, and Burke, you're virtually laying on a lot of first-party data. No,
Yes.
I thought like I had to work that in.
We are, yes. But it is interesting. I mean, a mattress is, I never thought I'd be selling mattresses, so it's weird. But it's interesting because it's a type of product that people don't really care about until they care about it, and then they really care about it a lot, and they put a lot of focus and effort onto it. So it's interesting for us, so how do we intercept them at the right time in the right place? We haven't had that figured out exactly, but that's kind of what we're trying to figure out, is how do we intercept them in that kind of perfect moment.
Okay. Now, let's take a quick look at 5G. All right. At Verizon, we feel we're a leader in 5G. Shouldn't hit that. And what's your expectation? Let's go with Rachel. Like, what's your expectation for 5G going forward?
On a business standpoint or personal standpoint?
We'll go business first, and then we'll go personal, because everyone always likes to hear the personal side of what you think 5G will deliver.
Well, obviously, we're going to have all kinds of new creative type opportunities to reach out to customers, from augmented reality to virtual reality, and make that a lot more interesting to the online shopping that consumers have, the expansion of kind of the website and what it delivers, to geo-targeting, all that kind of stuff. We know there's going to be all this great stuff, but I think the first thing that we need to do before we even go there is to actually build out the digital strategy. We know this is coming, and we need to get everybody's kind of head wrapped around it. It includes our creative at the agencies and such, and really start to think about what's coming, because I'm not sure that I've really done the best job, and I can't speak because I've seen some of your work, so it's very good. But I'm not sure that we've really done the best job of creating and constructing within even the social media. I'm not sure that we've even perfected how we construct assets and such that we even put into social media for 3G, 4G, because that kind of came up. But I think we have time to get prepared for what 5G is going to bring, and I think it's time to kind of test it, to pilot it, to understand what that's going to look like now and not in 3 years from now.
Okay, Ben, what's your expectation for 5G?
Just real fast, I talked about the magic moment before, and I think using video to show that to my customers is way better than a still picture. So having more options, creative options, ways to tell, short formats like that, to me, I just think ways that customers will be hopefully more accepting formats that we send to them rather than pummeling them with 30, 45, 60-second ads and social media ads, which nobody wants. So to me, that feels like a really good opportunity where it'll just feel more organic rather than stuck in there. And for us as advertisers or marketers, gives us a chance to tell a more rich story that hopefully feels part of the experience rather than adjunct.
Okay. And Burke will go business and personal. That way
Great.
we get some insight.
It's interesting to see as technology and innovation continues to grow faster and faster. It's coming to the point where really there's no limit of what we can create. It's really limited by what people can think up. When you look at movies and other things, I mean, the stuff that people are coming up with is pretty incredible. So as brands, we're going to have to accept that challenge of how do we create something that's really compelling, that is super, interesting, grabs attention, but also is based on that truth like we talked about. But I think, having the speed to deliver that to people in their, on their phone, I mean, that's how people are consuming things. So the faster it gets, the more innovative we can get in our storytelling. From a business standpoint, I think it's just speed, just processing data, the pace at which we work, everything's just getting faster. So the more we can have that, that pipeline of information, the better.
Okay. All right, thank you. Do we want to do a couple of questions? Stage
I think
manager?
we're out of time. Yeah.
We're out of time.
We're definitely out of time.